Whiskey, often spelled with E or without an E. It's just a regional spelling difference. Whiskey with an E is typically used in countries like Ireland and United States, while whiskey without E is popular in countries like Scotland, Canada, and Japan. The exact origin of whiskey is debated between Ireland and Scotland. Both claims to be the first one to produce whiskey. Now let's talk about how whiskey is made. All whiskey primarily made from grains such as barley, corn, rye, and wheat. You can use any single grain or mix of these. These dry grains are crushed between rollers to produce coarse powder. This process is called milling. This coarse powder is easy to dissolve in water as compared to whole grains. Now some manufacturers goes for extra steps before milling, that is malting. Simply, the grains you are using are firstly moistened and allowed to partially sprout, called germination. These germinated green cereals or grains are called green malt. Now this germination process is also need to be stopped as you don't want a new plant. This germination process is stopped by slow heating, and then we have dried malted grains, which are further sent for milling. Rest the process remains same. The whiskey made from these kind of malted grains are called malt whiskey. Now some manufacturers also produce single malt whiskey, which means 100% only one type of grain is used. For more detail, check my video on types of whiskey. Coming back to our whiskey making process. After milling, this coarse powder or ground grains are mixed well with warm water into a large vessel. This mixture is maintained at 65 degrees Celsius for about 1 to 2 hours, and even more if you want. This process is called mashing. This process helps in extracting sugar from the grains and forms a sugary liquid. Now this sugary liquid is filtered and separated from the solid substances such as husk and other grain residue and transferred to another vessel. This sugary liquid is called wort. Now we will use this wort for further process. Now in this wort we add yeast. Yeast consumes the sugar in the wort and produce alcohol and carbon dioxide. This process is called fermentation. The carbon dioxide escapes into air and we are left with fermented alcoholic beverage. This fermentation process typically lasts several days and results in a liquid with low alcohol content, typically ranges from 5 to 10% alcoholic percentage in the liquid solution. Note, higher the amount of starch or sugar in the grains used, higher the alcohol percentage in the fermented beverage. Now this fermented alcoholic beverage liquid solution is transferred to another tank, and this alcoholic liquid solution is called kvass or mash, or some also call it distiller's beer. Up to this point, the complete process is much similar to beer making process. For much detail of that process, check my video on beer making. Now, to increase the alcoholic percentage in this liquid solution, we go further for distillation, in which we heat this kvass or mash beer below the boiling point of water, around 75 to 80 degrees Celsius. At this temperature, alcohol begins to turn into vapors, but the water in the mixture stays behind because its boiling point is near 100 degrees Celsius. We then cool this alcohol vapors, converting it back into a liquid, and we get more concentrated alcoholic liquid. with higher alcohol percentage, normally around 20 to 30% ABV. This is called low wine. Then we further go for redistillation with this low wine to get more alcoholic percentage. After second distillation, we normally get 60 to 70% alcoholic concentrated liquid, and sometimes even more. Now this redistilled alcoholic concentrated liquid is called new make spirit or white dog, as it becomes a clear liquid. Now there are exceptions also. There are distilleries which are capable to get 60 to 70% alcoholic concentration in one distillation, as they go for multiple stages in one go, so they don't need redistillation. Also, if the alcohol percentage is more than 60 to 70%, then we add water to dilute and bring down to required level as per local guidelines. Normally it's between 60 to 70%. After this we go for aging. This new make spirit is then transferred to barrels for aging. Normally oak wood barrels are preferred and stored in warehouse where whiskey matures. Now for some fun fact. During this aging and maturation, some of the alcohol evaporates. This is known as angel's share, which creates a distinct smell in the warehouse. The aging process may take several years. For example, some Scotch whiskey are aged for 10 to 20 years. On the other hand, Irish whiskey and Canadian whiskey have a 3-year minimum aging requirement and are usually matured in used barrels. So it all depends on some regulatory policies and distilleries. During aging process, whiskey interacts with wood and undergoes some chemical changes, adding to its flavor, aroma and color. Now after the aging process is completed, check for alcoholic concentration once again. Normally whiskey alcoholic concentration is kept between 40 to 62.5% alcohol by volume. Now, as per your area's regulations, if the alcoholic concentration is more, bring it down to desired level by diluting it, means add water to bring it down. After that, whiskey is ready to be filled in bottles and sell it in market. Note, some brands also go for filtration before bottling. Well guys, that's all for the video. For more details on the types of whiskies, I'll suggest to watch my next video. You will also find the related video links in the description below.